Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cosplay Cafe, where we're always serving up a hot, steaming cup of cosplay. Tonight, they're tales as old as time. I had to use it. Some of them may be a little darker than others, but we are going to be talking fairy tale cosplay today. I'm sorry, these are my co hosts tonight. The kitty cats have decided they want to join the show. You all know my buddies. But tonight, I am your solo host because Kelly is at a con. Crayley just had a baby. Hunter should be on her way to Canada. And Aubrey is unable to join us. So you're stuck with me running the show. Sorry for that in advance. Y'all know I can talk way too much. So instead of just seeing my face on the screen, I'm going to bring in our guest, who is somebody you have all seen. You've seen lots of her submissions. She has been a big contributor and fan of the show. So we are going to go ahead and welcome in Steph.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to the show. Apparently you already have a little bit of a fan. Ninja Video Gaming 343 says, hi, Steph.
Hello.
You have a buddy there already to welcome you in.
Yep.
And Jordan Faust says hi. We already got it. We're 2 minutes into the show and we already have an active chat happening, so I kind of like that. That's a good thing.
Hey, it's one of those, when you got friends and you spread the word, you can't help it.
Yeah, Jordan says I'm a friend of hers. Well, we love seeing friends supporting our guests. That is a huge thing for us, friends supporting each other in all that we do as cosplayers. And Ninja Video Gaming also is a friend of yours.
Yep.
And Jordan says, hi, Hobbit.
Yeah, that is one of my nicknames, so that's one thing that I get called, so yeah.
Yep. You could be called a whole lot worse than a Hobbit. So,
yeah.
Hobbit's not a bad nickname.
No, it's actually one nickname I actually would rather be called than some other nicknames, but
I mean, hobbits get to have multiple meals a day. They run around barefoot in the fields. They're fat, happy. I don't see a negative at all in being a hobbit. I love this. Your comment, Jordan said she's getting me, a big guy, into cosplay.
Yes, I'm trying to, because a lot of them have actually been coming to me for cosplay ideas.
That is great. We love seeing that, especially when we've discussed. I just got bombed by Odin. We've discussed, especially men in the cosplay world. There's not as many. So, and if they're plus size, they definitely get looked down on. So we love seeing you say you're helping a big guy get into cosplay.
Yeah, like I said, it's one of those, what can I say? It's one of those, I try. I really do. I try to help people, especially since cosplay is one of my passions.
Yes. So, in that segue, tell us how you got into cosplay.
Well, about maybe the second or third con I went to, I really didn't understand. But it was one of those that I went to a couple of cons and I didn't really know exactly the term cosplay at the time. I just thought, it was just like everybody just dressing up and just all of that. And once I started getting into, because with Halloween being one of my favorite things, it's one of those, learning about cosplay is what actually got me into it, because it was one of those that I'd never really heard the term before until I actually had some friends actually explain it to me. I'm like, wait a minute, it's just like Halloween, just different.
It's Halloween. It's Halloween to the extreme.
Exactly. That's where.
It seems like almost everybody, I know we discussed this a month ago on our villain episode, you were either a theater kid or you were a Halloween kid, or you were both, and that's how you kind of get into cosplay.
Yeah. And of course, with tonight being Fairytale, Red was actually my second costume, I believe, that I wore to a con, because my very first one was actually a ninja. And that was before I knew what actually a cosplay was.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, red was actually, I think, like my second costume that I wore to a con, I believe. So that's one thing
awesome.
about it. That's how I got to it.
And I think it's so much fun, especially with like our theme tonight, fairy tales and folklore. The level of interpretation you can have, because I mean, you know, you're dressed as Little Red Riding Hood. I'm as the Disney version of Belle, even though there's so many iterations of Little Red Riding Hood, so many iterations of Beauty and the Beast, or any of these other stories that, you know, we can cosplay from. So you get such a variety of costuming, and it's so much fun to see, because in some of the pictures we'll have later, we've got people doing some of the same costumes. We've got another version of Little Red Riding Hood in some of our viewer submissions. And it's so much fun to see your take, her take, you know, other people coming up with different ways to do these well-known and most of the time very well-loved characters.
And one thing about it is I actually kind of did a twist with red. I actually went to half wolf on it.
Yep.
So it's one of those.
That's fun. That's so fun.
So I'm like, with red, there's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah. King Beast says, King Beast here, bonjour from the fort, phone being foobar. Well, you're here, and that's what we love. Ninja Video Gaming says, a ninja, huh? You never told me that, Steph.
Like I said, that was actually my very first cosplay, so it's kind of one of those, I really don't have a whole lot of pictures on that one, so.
That's what it's like, look, we all started somewhere. Not everybody knows about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we've all been a ninja or something at some point, even just for fun. Jordan says, I'm going to be Zed from Zombies. Okay.
Yeah, Disney's Zombies is also one of my favorite shows, and their main character, you come to find out in the third one, is actually a part alien. So I'm actually going to kind of do a mixture of hers sometime later on down the road. I'm excited.
They told me I can just call them Dakota, so thank you for that. I like to read your names out because we do turn this into audio sometimes, so people can know who is commenting. Our co-host Aubrey, she can't be here with us on video, but she commented and said, "Absolutely gorgeous, ladies. We miss your beautiful face, Aubrey. Hope you get better."
Yeah, miss you, Aubrey. Get better.
Yeah, we've got, like I said, we've got people all over. We've got our hosts at cons. We've got one with a brand new baby. We've got one on a plane, or at least on their way soon to Canada. And we're the five of us are spread to the winds right now. It's been wild. I realize we're already nearing the end of March, and I'm like, what? Where did the time go?
It's like, where did everything go? It's moving too fast.
January was an entire year in a month, and then I'm over here going, wait, it's already the end of March. So, you know, the fun of being an adult life gets you sometimes.
And sometimes it's one of those you don't ever really know what to expect.
You got to roll with the punches. And again, that can take us into our fairy tale realm. Do you have a favorite fairy tale?
Oh, that is actually a good question, because I'll say out of fairy tales, I mean, I'll say one of my favorite shows is Once Upon a Time. Yeah. That is actually one of my favorite shows. As for actual fairy tales, really all of them are really good in their own way. So it's kind of, you know, one of those, it's really hard to choose.
It's kind of what you're vibing on at the time type thing.
Exactly.
I think a lot of us, especially Disney fairy tale nerds, we got into Once Upon a Time because it is the Disney based, but it was a little more of a twist, and we got to see different versions of some of those characters.
And like I said, you know, with the fact of there being different versions of Red, you actually get to see a side of Red that you don't really see in maybe other versions.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, in Once Upon a Time, like once or twice, you actually see Red go wolf, or at least part wolf. So it's something like that you don't really think about, because in like maybe her original story, she maybe didn't go wolf, but she knew of the wolf because of the fact of her grandmother and stuff being eaten by the wolf.
Yeah, the Red in Once Upon a Time was definitely a little bit tougher than the original Fairytale version.
Yes, and that's one thing about that version of Red that I kind of actually do like.
Melody says, "Think I fixed my phone. Love both the cosplays. Second best Belle cosplay. You all know who number one is, and that would be their lovely wife. So I will gladly take second to Ashley in this one, Melody. I will gladly take second place there."
Yeah, but and like I said, with Red being a one of those that she's a lot tougher. She actually knows how to handle herself more, and once it makes it really cool to actually kind of, you know, see a different side of Red.
Yeah, I think my favorite mix up that they did with that show was that Rumpelstiltskin was also the Beast. I kind of loved him. He was kind of a jerk, and I loved it for it.
Yeah.
But he was also the Beast, which makes sense if you know the Rumpelstiltskin story. He kind of was a horrible person too, so it works out in a way. They had a fun time. You know, a lot of people lost interest in the show after a while, but I think it still had a lot of good basis for Fairytale stuff in it, and gave us some pretty cool costumes. I will say that Regina had some of the best costumes in TV show history.
Some of those were like, they're awesome, and I'm like,
they're on the cosplay list for someday.
Yeah, and I definitely like Regina on some of her costumes, especially which one? There is one specific one of hers I really like, and I think it's the one you see her when she's in the castle, and you see the mirror trying to get her attention. I liked that outfit of hers, and then like her civilian outfit was also kind of cool. She had some really unique ones.
She just had great style, both on both sides of the world, of the Fairytale world and the Earthbound realm.
Yeah,
she's a fashionable lady.
You can't forget Snow White in that. Her outfits were
toughened up a lot.
Yes, and the fact that she actually is one of those that she definitely toughened up, but also a lot of her abilities and skills actually got to show.
Yeah,
and what I like about
there was substance to a character that's pretty bland when it comes to Snow White. She's a one-dimensional character in a lot of the original fairy tales.
Exactly, and the fact that
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, go ahead if you want. But yeah,
I just say that the little claim to fame we have is that Jennifer Goodwin that plays Snow White, she's from my hometown. She's a Memphis girl.
Well, I got you talked. She's actually my sister or cousin, whichever way you want to put it, the ones I live with and everything, is actually related to the Goodwins. So we're actually kind of figuring that she actually may be related to Jennifer.
Aubrey said, "You're wearing my favorite Disney fairy tale, Beauty and the Beast." Thank you, Aubrey. She said, I met here in Nashville the actor who played Grumpy the Dwarf from Once Upon a Time, the ABC live action. when I met him, I couldn't stop stuttering. But my two favorite actors was 100% Rumpelstiltskin and Regina. They made that show.
Yes, they did. And the fact that you see with Rumpel, one thing about him, you see different sides of Rumpel. Not only do you see him as a bad guy, but you also kind of see him as a good guy in a way, too.
He was a love-struck guy who was just doing what he thought was right. And, love makes you do crazy things, as they say.
Yeah. And like I said, with Rumpel too, like I said, you see different sides of each character, so you kind of see different versions in a way kind of come together as one. Yeah. And one thing that really kind of makes it cool is how they bring in other fairy tales as well.
Yeah.
Frozen, Mulan,
Brave. They cross over in a cool way. They didn't just they all connected in some way. So it was a pretty cool little story, the way they mixed it up.
And the fact, like I said, with the crossovers and everything, and how they bring in the characters, it definitely gives it a whole thing of, different fairy tales. Okay, we'll go with this, kind of see,
And you have to think, like, the Grimm's fairy tales, they were German. So all of theirs were German-based. So I guess in a way it makes sense that all of these Disney fairy tales came from the same place as well in their own way.
Yeah. And like I said, it's kind of, they bring in the different characters and everything in once, and you kind of get to see different sides of characters that you fell in love with, like in animated versions of it.
Yes.
Like, of course, Elsa and Anna, seeing them in Frozen was a whole different ball. It was like, you get to see.
I felt like they genetically engineered those actresses because they looked like they came out of the animation.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking when I first seen it. I'm like, wait a minute. What are these?
They really looked spot on. It was kind of crazy how you can take an animated character and find somebody that looks so much like it, which again, cosplay. It's kind of what we do. We make ourselves look like these people that don't really exist.
And like when they brought Merida in from Brave.
Oh, that's what my Merida is based on, is that version.
So it's one of those, seeing the different characters and seeing a different version of Mulan is also another thing.
Yeah, seeing her grown up, her brother's grown up. You got more of the story for a lot of it. You got Melody says, probably unpopular opinion, but my fave story was the author arc and how they tied in Walt Disney. I need to rewatch the show. It's been a little bit since I watched it, but
I agree. I agree with that because it's been a while since I've actually watched it.
I go through so many rewatches of shows, and I'm like, that's probably getting close to being on the list for it. So. Sorry, my dog and cat just tried to have a fight in my lap. That was fun. But
probably,
it's fun. I like fairy tales. I like cosplay. It's really interesting to see people do their interpretations, or even like we were talking about once upon a time, seeing popular culture refurbish a fairy tale into something new. And I think that's what draws us to them. Even now, most of these fairy tales were written as cautionary tales for children, for young girls, stay away from the witches, the witches, don't go near the strangers with candy, as in Hansel and Gretel, or, beware of the big bad wolf, is kind of like telling girls not to stray off the path, when girls were supposed to be quiet and submissive. But then you see people reimagining it into modern stories or futuristic stories, and you get this whole new twist on these characters that might not be as relatable now in their original form.
And like you said, a lot of the fairy tales now, a lot of them were actually darker when they first started. So they actually kind of toned them down some compared
Disney
to what
especially gave us the child-friendly version of a lot of those tales.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's why, like I said, they toned down a lot of the stuff because you really don't realize you know, how dark some of these stories actually are.
Yeah. Your friend Dakota said, "I know who I want to start cosplaying as, and I need a follow up to that." Dakota, what are we planning? You can't leave us in suspense.
I know what he wants to do, and that's Link from Legend of Zelda. I know that's one thing he does want to cosplay as.
That was my nephew's one of my nephew's second cosplay, one of my other nephew's first cosplay. Because my oldest nephew, who is now an adult that is engaged to be married, which is really wild, his first cosplay I ever made for him was Link. And my little 2-year-old nephew, his first cosplay was Mayday Parker from Across the Spider-Verse, and then he was Link just recently. So he's 2, and he's already got 2 cosplay under his belt. So Dakota says they're planning to cosplay as Avatar Aang. So
that is actually a character that I would actually like to see. Yeah.
Aubrey said if we're asking our favorite dark fairy tale, I'd have to go with Cinderella. That's got some dark stuff in there.
Yeah.
Cutting off the sisters' toes and their heels, and the birds pecking their eyes out at the end.
Yeah, definitely dark.
That's definitely more the Grimm's version than the Charles Perrault version, because Perrault's was a little less dark. It still didn't have the happiest of endings for the sisters, but
that's like what is it? There's some fudge, my mind went blank on me. There's like another thing that's talking about dark stuff and like the Grimm fairy tales and stuff, but you know, like Snow White, a lot of that was actually really, really super dark.
Yeah.
And it's just like a lot of the stuff you don't realize how dark it definitely can be.
Yeah. If you like dark Cinderella, I just finished a book called Cinderella is Dead, and it's set a couple hundred years after Cinderella dies, and it tells a whole different story of her stepmother and stepsisters. And I'm usually not for the villain was actually the good guy story, because I get tired of trying to justify that the bad guys were actually acting in a good way. But this book is really good. It's also got people of color representation and LGBTQ representation. So it was a really good book if people want something fairy tale, but not the typical fairy tale story. So that was a good one I just finished recently.
Yeah. And like I don't know if you know the movie, but Enchanted, the movie, actual movie, Amy Adams, you also got to think, they actually just did a sequel for that called Disenchanted.
I've not actually watched that.
I haven't either. But from what I'm seeing of it, it's actually a lot darker than the original, than the first one. So it's like, I'm like, okay, what are they doing? Are they taking kind of the whole Cinderella idea and going dark with the Enchanted?
I've heard people that watched it. I've heard mixed reviews. Just like, I will say this, because today, it's funny that we did Fairytale and Folklore cosplay today, and today was the release day for the new Snow White movie. I saw that today. I actually enjoyed it. They gave Snow White depth, just like we were talking about with Once Upon a Time. There was substance to this character. She wasn't just a princess who got poisoned, and there was actual like substance and story, and I thought it was good. It's worth going to see. So I just felt it was funny that I'm sitting there with my brother and his wife, and we're talking about our upcoming Disneyland trip. And I'm like, oh yeah, when I leave here, I'm going home and getting ready for the podcast. And we're actually doing Fairytale and Folklore today. So it just kind of worked perfectly.
Yeah. See, if I watch Snow White, it's probably one of those I'd have to wait until
Yeah, Aubrey's talking about it. In the oldest Cinderella, the sisters cut off parts of their feet and leave with the prince and start dying as they run away with the prince. that prince leaves with the sisters, each of them separately, and stepmother, and they all die before he even chooses Cinderella. Yeah, those stories, they're intense.
Yeah.
And I think in adaptations, like I could talk about fairy tale adaptations all day. Some of my favorite books are actually the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer that are based on Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood / Beauty and the Beast, Rapunzel, and Snow White. They all started out as Sailor Moon fan fiction, then she blossomed them into these books. And if you've never read them, Cinderella's a cyborg, so instead of losing her shoe, she loses her whole foot, and it's amazing. I suggest those books all the time. She also wrote a book called Heartless, which is her version of how the Queen of Hearts became so evil. So she lives in fairy tale land. She also wrote some books about Rumpelstiltskin. I could talk about this woman's books all day, but this is supposed to be a cosplay podcast. So she was a cosplayer too, so technically it kind of works. And I met her in cosplay, dressed as the Queen of Hearts, because her book gave me inspiration for my costume. So, I got to meet her dressed as one of her characters, which was pretty cool.
And that's always a good thing. I mean, if you get to meet somebody that's like talking about a friend of mine.
Yeah.
She's a huge Star Wars fan, and Ahsoka is one of her favorite characters. She actually got to meet, dressed as Ahsoka, she actually got to meet Ashley.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
She loves meeting cosplayers. Ashley Eckstein loves meeting cosplayers. She's always so awesome. And what is Star Wars but kind of sci-fi / fantasy / fairy tale / Western in space?
Right, yeah.
All of those things wrapped into one, because it's Star Wars and it can be whatever you want it to be.
Exactly.
And that's what's so fun.
It's endless possibilities.
And again, leading it back into cosplay, I think that's the fun of doing any cosplay in general, but things like fairy tales, because a lot of them were not originally illustrated until later. You have so many options of what you can make. And even if somebody might not understand what it is at first, once you tell them, they kind of go, oh, okay. You can have all this fun and live in this world, but create your own ideas for it.
And going back on the cosplay and stuff, and a lot of times when you do conventions and stuff, that's something that usually tends to get overlooked is your fairy tale characters.
Unless you're in a big Disney ball gown that's a recognizable look.
That's like one con I went to, I'd done Red Riding Hood, and there's actually an anime out with a character called Ruby.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Her outfit is kind of a reverse of Red Riding Hood, because hers is black with the red.
Yeah.
And I actually got called, when I was at the con, I actually got called Ruby.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the fact of how close the costume resembled Ruby.
Yeah, I could see that with it. The weirdest one I get, I always got Cinderella when I was dressed as Aurora, but I got called Elsa in that costume multiple times. But the weirdest, I got called Goldilocks when I was dressed as Briar Rose. So I was like, okay, I guess it's blonde hair, whatever. But I was dressed as Snow White, and I got called Cinderella. There's nothing alike for the two of them, but I was somehow Cinderella to somebody.
That's like with my Jean Grey costume.
Yeah.
I actually got called Scarlet Witch in that before Scarlet Witch was real big. I actually got called Scarlet Witch in the Jean Grey costume.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I guess the long jacket, but you wore that before she really was hitting real big with the MCU and that look, because she didn't. that's not really what she looked like in the comics. she was a lot more pink and red in the comics for a long time. And thinking of pictures, we've hit the halfway point. So maybe it's time to start sharing pictures.
Let's go for it.
Let me find I was scrolled too far down. Excuse me. All right, let's see. Here we go.
This one right here is actually an interesting picture. I don't have the original. For some reason I don't have the original. But when I done this, the girl that was actually beside me was actually dressed as Red Riding Hood. So it was one of those, it was Red and the wolf side by side. I love that. That was actually kind of a cool picture. Like I said, I wish I had the original, but for some reason, I came upon the original for that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's always fun running into people in costumes that you can take pictures with like that.
Yeah. And like I said, with that, I kind of had the whole idea of doing half red, half wolf, because I'd actually found some pictures that where you actually see Red and the wolf side by side, so that kind of would give me the idea of doing that. So yeah, that was kind of.
Aubrey said, when I met Larry Elmore, I was dressed as his D&D character, Sophina. Would you say D&D and Fairytale characters feel similar in many ways? I think so. They have their own lore and stories, so I think they are very, very similar.
If it's not really Fairytale, it's more like folklore, because a lot of that is actually coming from the folklore side of the stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, a lot of it does tie to like the Celtic and the Irish and the Scottish and all those kinds of myths and lore. So yeah, they're fairy tales in their own way.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Next photo. You guys have seen this as we have been advertising, but here's the full photo.
Yeah. This was actually, I think, like I said, either my second or third con, right after I had gotten this outfit too. Is when and the one thing about it, I do actually have the short vest on in that. Tonight I actually put the long vest on, because one thing about that short vest, it's Velcro at the top, so it will tug. So I got to be careful with that. But yeah, that is the full Riding Hood, and that is actually one of my favorite costumes to wear.
I love it. Let's see. Next up, here's the one we were talking about. Here's your Jean Grey.
Yes. And this is the one, like I said, I got called Scarlet Witch in. I don't know if it's because the fireball itself or what, but I actually got called Scarlet Witch in this. And one thing about that is I actually have a friend of mine, the same day I did my Jean Grey, she actually done the comic book version of Jean Grey. And the two of us didn't even have a clue that the other was actually doing it. So it's kind of a surprise for both of us to see two different versions of Jean Grey. And when she wore her Jean Grey, she actually got called Captain Marvel in that. Which I'm like,
see, and whenever I'm Captain Marvel, I get called Wonder Woman. So I need these people to get their ducks in a row at cons.
Either that or they just don't pay attention to the characters.
I mean, I'm over here going, I'm dressed head to toe. Literally, my entire costume covers from the top of my neck to my feet. My hands are gloved. I have a blonde mohawk, but sure, I'm Wonder Woman. Got it. It's fine. It's fine. Let's see, we have a couple more of yours.
This right here is actually, this is why I picked this one. Technically, yeah, I did this in the kitchen. So
that's okay.
This is actually
just as good.
And plus, it is a little bit of a chaos, but in my red and black fairy that I had actually come up with, because I actually do have the red and black wings, so I was kind of, trying to play around with those, kind of seeing, what I could do with it. So I'm like, I'll try this and see how it's going to work. So this is my black my fairy with the black shirt and red pants, and it's one of those that like I said, this is actually one I kind of came up with just kind of on the spot, literally just kind of looking to see what I have and just kind of putting stuff together.
That's some of the most fun ways to do costumes is just take your stuff and go, what do I have? And coming up with all these fun ideas. And then we have this one.
And this is the other version with it, with the red and the black and red wings. And like I said, I just was kind of playing around with mine, just kind of see, what would work, what wouldn't. And I'm like, and with it being Fairytale, I'm like, what, why not put my fairy in there, even though it's kind of weird, but it's still fairy related. It's Fairytale related. So,
yeah.
but
no, we love those. Like it's fun to just play around with it and see what you have to come up with.
That was actually one of my favorites there, is to try to play around with it, because I was trying to figure out, with the stuff I had, seeing what I could do with it.
See, I think that was all the ones we had. That's all the ones Kelly uploaded. So those are the ones we have from your submissions, and we have some viewer submissions to share as well.
And there's one. I'm wondering if I still got a copy of it.
If you do, send it my way and I can upload it. But we'll go through our viewer submissions real quick, and then we can get back to our chit chat. This is a lovely couple we've had on several times. Garrett and Nikki, Wonderland duo, being lovely Snow White and her prince. I love Garrett and Nikki do so many matching costumes, and they are just absolutely adorable, and we love them so much. And then if you know the Ice Cream Queens, Lauren of the Ice Cream Queens is quite prolific with her costumes. She does so many cool characters. I love that she threw in her Medusa. That's part of her folklore side of the show.
I love the one I think is that Ursula, the top one there.
Yes, her Ursula. Oh, and she can sing Poor Unfortunate Souls like she should be on Broadway playing Ursula. Let's just say, if you ever are treated to hearing Lauren sing Poor Unfortunate Souls, you will not be disappointed.
That's pretty good.
And here we go, King Beast and their lovely wife Ashley. I'm totally okay with being second to this lovely Belle in Melody's eyes. I am 100% okay with that, because they're beautiful. Look at the two of them. And they recently, last weekend, got to meet Paige O'Hara, Belle herself. And I got to meet her last year. She is one of the sweetest humans in the world. Like, I recommend meeting Paige O'Hara if you ever get the chance. And she always takes pictures with Belle cosplayers. So I'm over there trying not to cry while taking pictures with her.
That's like one of the cons I was at. One of the cons, they actually brought in the original April O'Neil. And that was kind of cool to actually get to see her in person from the original cartoon.
Let's see, this is Angel running Wind 7. So here's our other Red Riding Hood submission that we have. It's looking lovely. I am sorry if you hear my dog's squeaky toy in the background. I hope you're not, but
I love her red. She's got an amazing red.
Angel is like one of the queens of thrifting costumes. Like, I try, but I get so, I don't know if it's the whole undiagnosed autism and ADHD in me that goes, I can't handle this space. I need to get out. There's too much happening. Angel can spend so much time in a thrift shop and come out with the coolest freaking costumes ever. And
that's like,
Melody talking about meeting Paige O'Hara. She wanted our picture. Best con we ever did. I agree. Paige O'Hara is amazing. And then Aubrey said, Lauren Knight is my cosplay girl crush. I hope we're allowed to say that. Oh, Lauren knows I'm in love with her. It's okay. I've told her husband that I'm in love with his wife. It's fine. It's totally fine. We've all come to the conclusion that we're each other's girl crush, and it's fine. It's fine. Okay, everybody. We just show the cosplay love. That's all it boils down to. Then one of my lovely theater kids that I have known for 6 years now, she was Alice to my Queen of Hearts many years ago. And this is her newest Alice and her Cinderella that we just recently made for her. This kid is magical. She is magical, literally.
I love that Alice costume. That is amazing.
I made that for her so that she could do volunteer work with us. And she gets to go to Wonderland many, many times with the Wonderland Duo cosplay. I do it. Back in Angel's picture, she had her White Rabbit. She also does the White Queen from Alice in Wonderland. So we travel down the rabbit hole quite often.
Well, that's like, speaking of Wonderland, Descendants actually has the new movie, Rise of Red.
Yeah.
This Red is the daughter of the Queen of Hearts. And they're from Wonderland. So it's like... Yes.
I mean, that's definitely a more modern fairy tale, because so many of them were written in the medieval medieval era and kind of like in that time frame, and were modernized. But Wonderland is a whole new creation that Lewis Carroll did, and it's now a more modern day fairy tale. And t-shirt cosplay. Love what Ruby and Elliot do. They are always so amazing. And she said, I don't know if the Musketeers count, but I'm like, I feel like in a way they're a folklore-y type thing. So yeah.
I would kind of fit because the fact of folklore and talking about medieval and stuff. So technically, yeah, they would actually.
And you got to think, just like so many other fairy tales, how many retellings and rewrites and recreations of the Musketeers do you see out there that are always different? Some of them are more grounded in reality. Others are a little more fantastical and make you kind of take into this realm of fantasy. And then, okay, this is going to be our youngest little submission this week. And Goose is adorable. This is Lauren's daughter. This kid is like about to be 7 or is 7 and is a cosplay veteran at this point. She knows what she's doing.
If that's the Cheshire Cat, that is amazing.
Oh, actually, she was the Cheshire Kitten because her mom was the Cheshire Cat.
But still the Cheshire.
It was adorable because she entered our cosplay contest a couple of weeks ago. And when she told us about making the costume, she said, well, I decided since my mom was the Cheshire Cat, I would be the Cheshire Kitten. And we just melted. It was the most adorable thing.
I would give a thought on that.
She's adorable. Like, this kid knows what she's doing when it comes to cosplay. She gets in front of a camera. You see her warrior Tinkerbell. That costume is stunning up close. She helped make it. And like her shield is a little button and her sword looks like a sewing needle.
And the one thing about it is it shows a different side of Tinkerbell.
Oh, yes. She's a feisty little thing. And I love that she captured that. And I'm telling you, this kid is going to put me into retirement one day. She's so great. And our last submission, the other queen, the other ice cream queen, Miss DL Memphis, giving us a variety. She's got the Queen of Hearts. She's got, some like Christmassy Yule characters. She's got the Santa Muerta, or did I say that right? Oh my God, I might have put the wrong name in there. She gave me a list. She did the Sealy Court Fairy. she also did her versions of Snow White. So we've got a little bit of everything from DL, and DL is my girl crush besides Lauren. And I tell DL all the time I want to be her when I grow up.
And those are amazing. I mean, those really are amazing.
Yes. And Aubrey talking about Lauren and her daughter Goose. They call her Goose. We like to keep her name off the air. Mother and daughter are spot on photogenic. They are gorgeous people, both inside and out. And then you add the other queen, you add DL, and that's my con family, and they are so talented, so fantastic. I could talk them up all day long. But we're not here to talk about them. We're still here talking about you and Fairytale cosplay for another about a little less than 15 minutes. So, and thank you, Dakota, to all of saying that pretty great costumes about all of our submissions. I love the viewer submission part. Steph knows that. She knows how much I love showing off people that might not always get spotlighted, because we're not
it really can't be seen, but I did my
if you can send it to me real quick and I can upload it
to you. I sent it to you on Messenger.
Okay, perfect. I will get that and we can share that picture. Give me half a second, but you can go ahead and talk while I do that.
But this was actually, I've not actually done this one for a con, but I actually loved the movie Hook with Robin Williams in it.
Oh, I love that movie. I love that movie.
And I decided that I wanted to try, or at least do my version of Julia Roberts' Tinkerbell.
Yeah, and she was a feisty little thing in that movie.
She was, and it's one of those, and she pulled it off so well that you actually wouldn't realize that it was her acting and everything too, because she pulled it off so well.
Yeah, I love that movie. I love the Peter Pan story anyway. So I thought that was a fun movie. I grew up on it, and it was Robin Williams.
And like one other movie, a lot of people don't realize is they actually had a movie with Mary Martin that did Peter Pan. That one was actually a good one too. And it was at the time, they actually had, like I said, Mary Martin doing Peter Pan.
Yeah.
And that one was a really good version of it, too.
Here we go.
That right there is, and like I said, I tried to do, my version of the Tinkerbell because I actually liked the Julia Roberts Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the cartoon Tinkerbell is cool, but her dress is just too short, and it's like for somebody that's short already and kind of plus size, that doesn't always work.
Yeah no my theater student that's the Alice and Cinderella, she has a Tinkerbell that we made her, and she's gotten taller since we made it, and to be able to use it for volunteer events, we had to add extra panels underneath. So, because we're like, it's a little not appropriate around children anymore. So,
and
you have to modify and make it fit you.
Yeah, and like I said, with me, I was like, it was something I was kind of wanting to play around with because, like I said, the movie Hook and seeing Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell was like amazing and especially her chemistry with Robin Williams too. It was kind of unique to see the movie there. So I was like, this is kind of a unique idea to try to do that version of Tinkerbell because, to be honest with you, a lot of people don't really see that version of Tinkerbell.
No, you see the based on the Disney version the most, and so to get a little bit more like that was a not, I don't like the word gritty because that makes it sound like it was dark and dirty, but it was a little more realistic version of Tinkerbell. She wasn't just this cutesy little fairy who had little tantrums. She was one of their partners in crime. Like, she was hanging out with the Lost Boys doing all the crazy stuff they did.
And like I said, you see a different side of Tinkerbell, and it's like, and like I said, a lot of people actually don't pay attention to that version of Tinkerbell. They're mostly, stuck on the Disney version.
Yeah.
But like we've said before, there's a lot of different variations of characters. You've just got to put yourself out there and watch them.
Watch them or create your own. That's always, I love original designs, and I think that's one of the things I love about using fairy tale characters or, things from folklore and that kind of thing, because I can do my own thing and not have to be tied to a certain look or a certain type of character. I can make it what I want.
And like I said, and like we've talked about before, with like characters, like your fairies, like straight up fairies and stuff, they're not just cute. They can be dangerous if they need to be. Yes. They will do what they have to do to protect what they love. Yeah, that's like, what is it? I think in Once Upon a Time, you kind of see a different side of Tinkerbell as well. Not just the helpful kind, but you also see a different side of her.
And she with, has like a petty side to her.
Yeah, and like I said, with the Julia Roberts one, you actually see how feisty Tinkerbell can actually be.
Right.
And it's one of those, there's a lot of different variations of different characters. And like I said, not all fairies are good.
When you bring up like when you talk about the fae folk or the fair folk, you don't cross them, you don't step in their fairy circles, you don't eat and drink in their realms. It's there's some pretty dark fairy stories out there, and I definitely suggest, if you've never read them, go look them up, because you can find some really cool, like we said, folklore fairy tales, like the kinds that you would hear in Ireland and those kinds of places.
Yeah. And like I said, with that version I did it with what I had. Basically, I did a costume cosplay of the Julia Roberts Tinkerbell. Yeah. Because it was stuff that I already had, that I was kind of like, let's see how this is going to work.
Yeah. Well, we're reaching the end of the hour, so I'm about to give you the full screen and ask you our usual question we always ask at the end, which is, what is your one piece of advice giving somebody who is starting out cosplaying?
Be yourself. Don't let anybody tell you can't do it. I've been through it. I know. I've actually had the issue. Just be yourself and go for it. That's the biggest thing. Be yourself. Go for it. Show your creative side.
Turn my mic back on. I had to turn my mic back on. I didn't want to have anything covering what you were saying. But that's good, simple, easy. Like, that's the best thing you can do. It's very cliche, but it's good advice.
Like I said, be yourself. Show your creative side. Don't be afraid. Just basically let it go. Show what you can do.
Listen to Elsa and let it go.
So yeah, just be yourself.
Or pretend to be somebody else for a little while, and that makes you be yourself. That's what we do. So as we're nearing the end, where can people find you online if they want to follow you?
Most of the time, I'm usually on Facebook, which is one of those that's kind of really hard to say because of how to look it up, because a lot of people don't really know me. But Facebook, if you look under Stephanie and Warlick, you might be able to find me, because like I said, there is a different people with the same name, so it's really kind of hard to find me. So I know Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I'm on those, but like I said, it's kind of one of those. Unless you kind of ask Andrea to give me a heads up, I can send her the stuff, but really Facebook.
When we share your pictures, we'll make sure to tag your social medias. So if anybody wants to follow you, befriend you, ask you questions, maybe make some new cosplay friends. Go live in the fairy world.
Yeah, and making friends is always a good thing.
Oh, no, kitty, no, off the computer. We're at the end, buddy. For me, all the Cosplay Cafe baristas, you can find us in our link tree, but me specifically, you'll find me mostly on Instagram at Media Rice. I've started using my Blue Sky more. Facebook, it's directly from my Instagram, so you'll see the same things there as you see on Instagram, but it's under Andrea Starnes. If you want to send a friend request, if I get a lot of random ones, so just always message me, say, hey, I saw you on the Cosplay Cafe. That's an easier way, because some of them I look at we have no mutuals, or I don't know, I've never talked to you before, and I don't get an alert saying I have requests. So, but we are reaching the end of our episode. We had hopefully a good time. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope, Steph, you had a good time with us. Or
I
us.
did.
That sounds like the royal we at this point, because it's just me unless you count the kitty cats.
Well, if you technically think about it, we're both royal in our own way. So,
look, I don't have my gloves on, which is Disney's way of saying that princess was not born a princess. But computer touchpads and gloves, they apparently don't like each other. And, they didn't have computers back then, It might be a tale as old as time, but it's not modern.
Exactly. And like I said, it's one of those,
y'all could tell what I was, so it's fine. We didn't need look, we're not sitting here. I'm going to give you the illusion. I'm going to break the illusion. We are sitting here in black leggings with our dress on, without our dress on, because I was not about to put on that heavy skirt, 2 hoop skirts, and try to sit on my couch.
And of course, with mine, it's like, trying to stand up and everything. With mine, it's like really one of those, it's like you really, it can be uncomfortable at times unless you know what.
I'm sitting here in a steel-boned corset, so we're doing great.
I mean, like I said, if you think about it, the way the costume is made here, it's like.
We should have done that during the catwalk that I forgot to do. Whoopsies! We just did it at the end after the advice and the where can you find us.
Hey, whatever way it works, at least it still shows.
I don't have Kelly here to keep me on track. Kelly keeps the train on the tracks, and when Kelly's not here, the train isn't even anywhere near the tracks. It's out in the field somewhere. Just so y'all know. But we had a great time. I hope everybody enjoyed being in the chat with us, and we will see you. When is our next episode? It is sometime in April. We'll get you those dates, because I can barely keep up with what day it is today sometimes. So until then, thank you for watching, and we will see you guys soon.